Blaze News, the mandate, day 50. We've already made it to day 50. I'm Jill Savage. Tonight on the agenda, today is the day that President Trump's tariffs take effect. He celebrated with his Truth Social post, writing, "It's Liberation Day in America." White House trade advisor Peter Navarro told Fox News that these tariffs will generate $600 billion annually, which will come out to $6 trillion over the next decade. Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt explained how this day will go down as one of the most important days in American history. Watch.
April 2nd, 2025 will go down as one of the most important days in modern American history. Our country has been one of the most open economies in the world, and we have the consumer base hands down, the best consumer base. But too many foreign countries have their markets closed to our exports. This is fundamentally unfair. The lack of reciprocity contributes to our large and persistent annual trade deficit that's gutted our industries and hollowed out key workforces. But those days of America, beginning tomorrow, being ripped off are over.
Economist Stephen Moore broke down how Trump's tariffs will work for the American people.
You know, the United States does have the lowest tariffs virtually in the world. And as Trump has been saying, that these other countries are ripping us off. They're not playing by the rules of the game. It's not a level playing field. And, you know, I'm a free trade guy. I believe it's beneficial to the world to lower tariffs as much as possible. If Trump's policies work out here, I do believe at the end of the day that there will be a lowering of tariffs around the world.
And President Trump's trade negotiations are delivering massive investments, and these investments are estimated to add up to nearly $5 trillion to America's Treasury. ABC has reported that Trump indicated to his top advisors that Elon Musk may soon take a step back from his role in the administration, but some of Musk's defenders in the White House are saying these reports are overblown. Now, Musk has a special government employee designation, meaning that his 130-day term would end in May. But Karoline Leavitt shut this story down in an X post. She called it garbage and explained that Trump and Musk both have publicly stated that Musk will step down when his work at Doge is complete. Meanwhile, the House GOP is in gridlock over Representative Paulina Luna's vote by proxy bill. The committee will not vote for any rules until leadership kills the proposal from Representative Luna. In Florida, Republicans defeated Democrats in 2 special elections, and this means the GOP will maintain their slim majority in the House of Representatives. Over in Wisconsin, things didn't go as well. Conservative Circuit Court Judge Brad Schemmel lost his bid for the vacant seat in the state Supreme Court. His liberal opponent, Judge Susan Crawford, beat him by 10 points. And most of the press coverage has been on Elon Musk and his involvement in the race. Here's CNN's Jake Tapper explaining why it was okay for George Soros to fund a candidate, but not Elon.
Anytime anybody brings this up, a Republican will say, well, what about J.B. Pritzker, and what about George Soros, and what about this, what about that? And I guess the answer is you don't see George, first of all,
George Soros
you don't see them out there talking.
Yeah. No.
Right? I mean, they might be giving money to organizations, this and that, and people can criticize that if they want. But the idea that, like, oh, no, I am going to tell these voters, forget, like, hiring Scott Walker to do it or
Oh, the irony. Finally, a new book from NBC reporter Jonathan Allen titled Fight details the chaos behind the 2024 Kamala Harris campaign. Barack Obama takes a starring role in the tale as Allen claims he actively fought against Kamala's nomination after Joe Biden dropped out of the race. Now let's bring in Blaze News editor-in-chief, Matthew Peterson. Matthew, happy Liberation Day. This day is supposed to go down as one of the biggest days in American history. What's your take on tariffs, Liberation Day, Donald Trump, and Day 50?
Well, first off, happy Liberation Day to you, Jill. Thank you for mentioning this. This is not set in stone that it becomes the most important day. Let me just say, I'm going to throw some cold water on someone who I love, right? Every time you say that, though, in history, it always becomes another day, right? They thought July 2nd is going to be known in 1776 forever, right? So that always happens to whenever you say this is the most important day. But her point is real because we have for decades been in a situation in which there is no free trade. Free trade is an illusion. You live in a society that is constantly being taxed, right, overseas. There is no. So what you see today, the liberation, the first thing you see countries all over the world going, you know what? We're just kidding. We're going to drop these tariffs on your goods, which means you might actually have free trade, right? Without the tariffs on the other side, because the threat alone is enough for many of these countries to say, you know what? We don't want to play this game. We know we need the United States as a partner, and we're going to back off. And that's happening over and over again. And it makes you wonder, why didn't we do this before? Why haven't we done this already? And then, of course, there's the deeper liberation, which is an economy that works for the middle class, that works for most of the people and not just the asset holders. There's nothing, of course, wrong with holding assets. It's a good thing that the market works this way. But if you look at what's gone on in the last few decades, it's been very, very good, this economy, for people who are in that top class, who do hold the assets. And it has not been good for everybody else, many of the people who voted for Donald Trump. So we need to rectify that situation and make fair trade a reality.
I want to get into the Democrat candidate fiasco of 2024 because, one, the book is called Fight, which I think that Donald Trump kind of owns that word now, right? He said fight, fight, fight. And you're coming out here trying, in the same election cycle, trying to name your book Fight. One, bad marketing on your part. But then we get the news that Barack Obama wanted an open primary against Donald Trump. But I remember when we were doing the shows, when we had Chris Bedford on, and he's like, no, the money has to stay within this candidate cycle with Kamala Harris. She was the next one in line, that she was the VP on the ticket. Like, they couldn't just wholesale change this. But Barack wanted an open primary against Trump.
Yeah, I mean, look, the conventional wisdom was Biden couldn't step down, right? I mean, and then it's, well, yes, the money's going to go to the VP, so that's a problem. But there's many ways to deal with that. One is raise more money, which you can do. It's not impossible. And Barack, I think, was in this. It's gone now, right? But he's in this role of this arrogant sort of king, of the entire world and the Democratic Party. And that bubble sure popped right after this. So, at the time, it seemed clear to me that Obama definitely wanted an open primary. He did not want Kamala in there. And that was Joe Biden's last stick in the eye to Obama, was to make sure that she was the heir apparent. And is it insane? No, it's not insane. I mean, you know that she's going to lose. If you know that she's going to lose and you can find someone who's a great candidate, you can raise a ton of money. She raised a ton of money right afterwards. Remember, she was all of a sudden very, very popular for a short period of time, and she was raising tons of money. So this shows that Obama thought that he had superpowers, and I think that era is now thankfully over.
It was a brat summer that we can thankfully put behind us in the rearview mirror. We don't have to deal with that anymore. But when we come back straight ahead, it's Steve Deace. He's going to explain why the war against the deep state starts in the courts next. Well, Liberation Day is all about the tariff wars. We have recession fears all around us, and we know about the stubborn inflation that has been sticking around for so long. But there's no wonder why gold has been routinely hitting all-time highs, because we have a volatile market right now. So don't sit on the sidelines with your head in the sand. Take control and safeguard your savings. That's why so many Americans are turning to Birch Gold Group. They've helped tens of thousands convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA of physical gold. So is it time for you to hedge against economic inflation and all the instability with gold? Learn how to own physical gold in a tax-sheltered account. Text my name, Jill, to 989898, and Birch Gold will send you a free, no-obligation info kit. Again, it's my name, Jill, to 989898. Now, they have an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau, countless five-star reviews, so you can trust Birch Gold to protect your savings with gold. It took us decades to get into this tangled mess that they're trying to unpack right now. So how long will it take to get out of it, and at what cost? Text Jill to 989898 today. The results of Wisconsin's Supreme Court race are raising serious questions, not just about the candidates, but about the GOP brand itself. Despite nearly 200,000 voters backing voter ID, many of those people went out and chose to vote for the Democrat for the court. So why can't Republicans close the deal when their policies are popular, but their party isn't? Here with more is BlazeTV host Steve Deace. So Steve, thanks so much for joining us. So we see the voter ID ballot, it outperformed all the GOP-backed Supreme Court candidate by nearly 200,000 votes. So what does this tell us?
I think it tells you, Jill, that the party brand is mortally wounded. And to quote the great prophet Jack Nicholson version of the Joker, this town needs an enema. I think this thing needs a full cleanse, a complete reboot, complete rebrand. I think what happened in the last election is maga, essentially, Trump was able to, first of all, successfully get people to give him a new look and recover some of what made him one of the most popular, likable celebrities in the world. The strategy of putting him on those long-form podcasts, I think, reminded people, got him outside of soundbite wars with the media and let him rise above that and talk directly to the people and turn his favorables around. That was the first factor. And I think the second factor was maga. I think some disillusioned liberals or people that maybe aren't hardcore right-wingers, but are people that believe in truth and some form of justice in the American way. They were essentially the expansion coalition for Trump, because he actually had to lower the lowest evangelical turnout he had of his two previous runs was this past year. I think that created a unique moment in 24, because what happened in Wisconsin, we have been seeing happening for years now. I mean, for the last 2 years, we have seen over and over again the GOP underperform, even in places where they're heavily favored. They won the 2 races in Florida last night, but they dramatically underperformed in both of them. The party brand is tarnished. It's been routinely losing off year and special elections. I think Trump, for the first time, is clearly more popular than the Republican Party. I think when people are offered a bifurcation where they can vote for what we believe without having to vote Republican, they do that. And that explains why you had so many more people vote for voter ID than vote for the Republican Supreme Court nominee. And I think Trump is viewed as a bifurcation. I don't think he's viewed by the American people as a vessel of uniquely of the Republican Party. So the party brand is very, very tarnished. The Democrats are really out of ideas people believe in, out of candidates they take seriously. But the Republican Party systemically really isn't in that much better of a position. It just has a few very popular people that can capture the imagination. Trump on a national level, a few very popular governors like a DeSantis in Florida. But beyond that, it systemically has many of the same problems, just a different variety of the Democratic Party.
Steve, provocative, interesting thoughts, and I think important discussion here as usual. When you let me poke if I'm going to question what you're saying. I would say, okay, well, to really get into it, in Wisconsin itself, did any of these people claim Trump, though? I mean, did they associate themselves with Trump at least? Is that not enough?
That's a very good question. I think that, I think you can't wear Trump as a skin suit, Matt. I think that if you are like Lindsey Graham or John Cornyn in you guys' state, because of the demographics of the state that pre-exist Trump that are heavily oriented towards Republicans, they can put Trump on as a skin suit, get a 3 a.m. post on Truth Social, and that's a papal dispensation, and this is my son in whom I am well pleased, and they can cruise to victory in a primary. But I think when we get to swing states, I think that you have got to represent some form of bifurcation. You have got to the cultural upheaval we want to see happens when people don't have to vote Republican. Like they don't go to the Snow White movie. Instead, they go to an R-rated Jason Statham, God bless him, populist retribution porn film instead. Okay. That stuff happens when people get to act organically or apart from the two-party system. Maybe what we would call on networks like ours, the uniparty, Matt. And so I think what's really challenging here is how do you brand yourself as not part of the uniparty in these swing states, but be taken seriously at the exact same time? Because otherwise you end up in a no man's land. And I know this is going to sound nuts, but in some respects you might be better off running like a Nikki Haley candidate, because at least there's some suburban base for her milquetoast. If you try to apply the Trump skin suit to yourself, but it's not really who you are, you kind of get the worst of both worlds. You do not get an energized Trump base. They spot you for a phony. But then the other side, you have completely max lit, their fervor against you because you're adopting the MAGA brand. And so ultimately, we can't outrun our worldview. Worldview is destiny. The people of America are clearly making it known on multiple sectors right now, from NBA TV ratings to what's happening at the box office to what happened in the last election. They want a massive paradigm shift. If you are not willing to offer that, and it does not matter if you're Republican or Democrat, if you're not willing to offer that, they will reject you.
I love the Lindsey Graham references, so thanks for dropping that. I want to look at, because we know they just voted yesterday, April 1st. If that's where we are, if these are the outcomes that we're getting right now, and they aren't doing anything yet on Capitol Hill, right? Our show is called The Mandate. What have they done? They've passed a continuing resolution, Steve. That's what they've done so far for Trump and the mandate. And when we had Mark Meadows, Trump's former chief of staff, on, he's like, they have a honeymoon period through about May, and then things are really going to start getting gridlocked there on Capitol Hill. So if things aren't going to get done on Capitol Hill, Trump can go out there and say, promises made, promises kept. But if we look forward, how do you see these problems that we have right now that you're talking about? How do you see these playing out with the midterm elections, or even further with the branding that we have right now with the GOP?
Only the Republican Party could concoct a meltdown in full view of the public based on one side says, I don't want to have to go to work, and the other side says, well, of course, we're not going to have any respect for new moms and new dads whatsoever. A loser argument on both sides. And yet that's exactly what took place yesterday. It's a little bit like saying, hey, we figured everything else out on how to coach our football team, but we can't snap the ball into play. All right. I mean, the Republican Party on Capitol Hill, to call it a joke would be an insult to jokes. The leadership there, I don't care how much he tries strutting out, at UFC fights with the Trump entourage. It's just a limp-wristed beta male, fake evangelical speaker over and over again who cannot lead anybody anything. They don't have a unified vision at all. We did this continuing resolution, we were told, so that we can just get this fake budget fight out of the way and focus on the real issues of codifying Trump's agenda. So, okay, fine, we'll eat the crab sandwich. They did that, and then they didn't do anything after that. So we got the worst of both worlds again. There's a common theme there, as you can see. I hate saying this, man, and I would imagine right now, if anybody at the Trump White House is watching what I'm about to say, rolling their eyes and saying, listen, man, we're not superheroes. I know it's not fair, okay? But here is the truth of the situation we are in. Nothing good will happen unless Trump and his administration does it. Trump has been very hesitant to use a lot of political capital on internecine fights within the Republican Party. Very hesitant. He has tried to bypass them, give their endorsements to Lindsey Graham as long as you back me against Zelensky and some of these Faustian bargains. But we're getting to the point, everything just articulated is, I'm not sure who's going to stillborn Trump's term more or first, the judicial branch or the legislative one. Trump is going to have to pick one of these two branches. I wrote about the courts last week here at the Blaze. I mean, you're talking about the Congress right now. You can't fight a two-front war in politics. I wouldn't try doing both of them. But he's going to have to pick one of these two branches, and he's going to have to interpose a historic amount of his own political capital on getting one of them to move, either in going Abraham Lincoln directly at the courts and saying, I'm not going to enforce edicts that clearly violate your constitutional mandate. If you don't like it, we'll take our case to the people and let them decide in the next couple of election cycles. Or he's going to have to do that when it comes to the Republican Congress. And we could probably get 10 really smart people, the entire staff here at the Blaze, together in a room and say, hey, which one of these two branches would you urge the Trump administration to focus on the most? And we'd probably come up with a split decision and both be wrong and right. That's how dysfunctional and opposition and anathema the whole process is. But we are reaching, Mark Meadows is correct, we are reaching the limits of this honeymoon period of what Trump can do unilaterally. At some point, you need a bureaucracy that will actually fulfill these edicts, and that keeps getting stymied by the courts. And then at some point, we need to codify this stuff into law so it doesn't go away 5 seconds after the next Democrat president takes over. That involves the Congress. So they're going to have to pick one of these branches, and they're going to have to try to exert an extraordinary, unprecedented amount of political capital on either opposing them or getting them to move. I don't see another way out of this.
Well, now, to be fair, Steve, if we just zoom out right at the situation, this was sort of inevitable, given that Trump was always a rejection of the Republican Party by Republican voters initially, and now I think a kind of realigned coalition that wants something new and something different. So I've always thought, do you keep the party logo? Do you? It's hard to create anything new, as we know. I mean, you have position, you have branding, right?
We're going to be the Washington Commanders. It's going to happen.
Yeah, the Generals. Do you keep
the pre-Jayden Daniels Washington Commanders?
Exactly.
You mean? Yes, the Daniel Snyder ones. Yes.
So the interesting thing is, it does feel to me like this was a kind of realigning election. I do think that there's a great chance that that's actually true. You do have a kind of 55-60% realigned majority that will only probably harden and solidify as time goes on. You see this happening on some of these issues, right? Deportation is still popular. It's probably more popular than it's ever been. But so there's the potential is there. So in a way, it always had to be this way, right? Because the Republicans needed their reboot and to be remade. And I agree with you. I think that there are people in the administration who realize this, but they're going to have to put pressure on Congress, just like they did there in the confirmation. And the good news is that what we saw in confirmation was true. Someone like Lindsey Graham will put on whatever skin suit you tell him if it keeps him in power and doing whatever he likes to do in his free time. So that's all they want, really. So when it comes to the reboot, though, don't you think that the future is actually in the smart people who are there, like the J.D. Vances, some of the Maha, and some of the tech guys, hopefully laying out something new that they can articulate in interesting ways moving forward that brings people together. And so here's what I think is going to happen. I think that when you say, these fights are going to happen within the Republican Party now, oh yeah, that's going to increase. So the next 2 years, everyone's going to fight each other because they're all going to fight about what the definition of this new thing is, as the hollowed out, desiccated Republican Party sort of lays there as a carcass, right? And births hopefully something big and beautiful. And so we have to be involved in that fight. And I do think there are some people like the Vances who, they'll appeal to the normies of the future. They're kind of laying that out there. But it's all going to be like births from really the White House battles of the next few years. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I think you're exactly correct. But I think you actually may have convinced me that even more than I was before going into this conversation, that ultimately the political capital has to be spent on the courts. And here's why. Because you're in a situation, so your MAGA Maha coalition delivers for you on Election Day. Trump delivers for them in his confirmations. RFK Jr. announces yesterday he's getting rid of 10,000 essentially hacktivists pretending to be bureaucrats and scientists at HHS. You and I both know, Matt, sometime in the next 15 minutes, some federal judge from the 666 different district of your bowels is going to issue some order claiming you can't do that and reinstate them all. Okay. And the problem you're going to have is the Maha people do not have like some long standing understanding of the rules of engagement. They're not used to surrender now before it's too late, right? For example, last week when you had some of these Trump influencers online, propping up Coke Zero, who never called me, by the way, or Stu. We're both deeply insulted. We'd have done it for a lot cheaper than whatever you're paying those guys for. We're ambassadors for it. All right. But the way Maha influencers turned on the MAGA influencers over the soda stuff, okay, that's an indication of these people aren't here for some like 30, 40-year access-based political process of how I make sure I get my appointment this time and my guy gets the job next time and I get the show on the network the next time. They're trying to change a country. And I think you have a limited window to capture that energy, to have that, to get to that 55% threshold of critical mass of normie popular opinion that you're talking about. And I think you need to deliver for those folks. And if we continue to let the courts, every time one of their people steps in and does something, just continue to say, nope, you can't do that. 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 I think we risk alienating those people out of our coalition. I think we have a moment right now. We've got to deliver for them in a big way. And if we do, I think they could become a permanent part of our coalition to create the cultural majority that you're talking about. But I think it's the courts that ultimately stand in the way of that uniquely. They are operating essentially as a judicial coup against the Trump administration.
Let me pile on, because you're convincing me as well of this thesis. I think also that to resurrect Congress, right? If we go after the courts first, if they attack the courts first, you allow that mandate to be implemented, and then that will rouse Congress. The only thing that's going to bring Congress back from the dead is if their real master, the administrative state, actually feels the pinch and hurt and the pain. And then they will go. They will say, Congress, you have to do something, and they might actually have pass laws and budgets again. So does that seem right to you? Because if
100%,
if we enact
you take their biggest excuse away, so many of these members of Congress, we're getting into Easter season. They're Pontius Pilate. I'd really like to set this Jewish carpenter free. That the people have spoken here. I mean, the courts have spoken, guys.
Then you can do.
Wash my hands of the matter, right?
Yes.
So they get both sides of the issue. They get to run on our angst and then not have to actually deliver because the courts step in and put a prophylactic on it every single time. Well, it's time to raw dog some legislating, Matt. Okay, and so if you get rid of the false objection of the courts offering you some form of get out of jail free card, so you now have to actually deliver, the amount of internal pressure that mounts on members of Congress, I think it increases exponentially.
I like it. I mean, that's maha, right? It's natural.
Indeed it is.
What I learned from this segment, though, Steve Deace will grift for Diet Coke. Absolutely not for the Republicans.
Coke Zero, not Diet Coke.
I'm
Diet
sorry.
Coke sucks. I love Coke Zero, though.
Coke Zero. But the Republicans, absolutely not. They don't deserve any of it anyway. What are they even doing?
I don't know. I have no idea. What kind of a grown man says, and that's why we're just not going to vote on anything all week long. The whole thing. You know how many of these guys, I just have come to the conclusion, the amount of these guys that we get elected that have ever been in a fight, ever done an Oklahoma drill for a high school football team, ever taken an actual punch, or had to punch back, is just really small. Okay. I mean, it's insulting too. So many other great civilizations, when they fell, guys, they got Genghis Khan. They got Ivan the Terrible. They got Attila the Hun. Yeah.
We get Lady G.
We can't even be bothered. We're bored. We're weak. That's what we got. Yes.
We're not going to black pill, though. But Steve, thanks for trying to make us. I appreciate you coming on the show. We'll catch you again soon.
It's just my gift. I even wore black just for you guys. So there you go.
Banta Black, Steve Deace, as always. Thanks so much. We're going to have Chris Bedford. Maybe he'll be able to lighten the mood up a little bit, but I don't know, because you know what? We're going to look into why he's highlighting the Hunter Biden cover-up and why that's actually worse than you thought. Stay tuned. Everyone knows that college is a major investment, so it's important for you to do your homework. So you want to find schools that share your values. Of course you do. But who has time to dig through all those websites and find out what really matters? Well, today we're excited to share a new online resource that does the work for you. It's ChristianCollegeGuide.com. It's the only online directory of over 250 Christian colleges. It's a one-stop shop. So like any other college guide, of course, you're going to get the basics. You're going to get the acceptance rates, the tuition costs, the academic majors. But what makes ChristianCollegeGuide.com special is you can learn about all of this stuff that is really important to you, the school's faith traditions, their campus policies, and its spiritual life, all the things that show the college's true character. You'll be able to find answers for over 150 questions for every school that's profiled, making it the definitive guide to Christian higher education. And it's completely free to the public. That's right, completely free. So just go to ChristianCollegeGuide.com, create a user profile, and get started today. That's ChristianCollegeGuide.com. New chat logs released by House Republicans show the FBI wasn't just quiet about the Hunter Biden laptop story before the 2020 election. They actually told their own people not to talk about it. A senior FBI lawyer even issued a gag order on an agent to stop them from speaking out. So here to unpack all the latest revelations is Blaze Media senior politics editor Chris Bedford. So, Bedford, I mean, look at this update that we get today, right? How does this latest update make the Hunter Biden cover-up even more insidious? I didn't even know that was going to be possible.
You know, but we always knew this is what was going on. Everyone in this room, everyone was watching, we knew that this was crooked. We knew it was corrupt. We knew that top levels of the U.S. government and alumni of the intelligence community were involved. So what we're seeing now is actually unbelievably refreshing, because I covered this the whole time. And now we have the receipts. Now we have things we can insert into the history books. Now people will be able to look back in 50 years and say the entire thing was bogus. The corruption of the Biden family can start to begin to be exposed. How high the protection for them went can begin to be really exposed. And I remember that for the first couple of years I was covering this, whenever Maria Bartiromo or whoever else would say, well, are there going to be consequences? My answer would always be no. That's not really the way that DC seems to work for the left. There are never any consequences. But there's a new sheriff in town, one that I never expected in my lifetime to actually ever see. People who are interested, who are committed to, who are determined to hold people accountable, to make sure that there are firings, to make sure that pensions are taken away, to make sure that they're, when necessary, when crimes have been committed, that actually people are punished accordingly for their interference in civilian government. And it also draws into stark relief just how the party of democracy and promotion, norms. Remember when Joe Biden was elected, it was all about the return of civility, the return of norms. What a lie that whole thing was. And thank God it didn't really work. You could get all the fake historians of the last 50 years, John Meacham and all the other mealy-mouthed people, writing your speeches. The American people looked at it and said, this is stupid. This is bogus. We don't buy it. And now, in real time, you don't have to wait for like 75 years like you did with the Kennedy assassination. You don't have to wait for another 20 years like we probably will have to do with Watergate to get the receipts and learn how presidents were undermined, how mistakes were made, and how our federal government is out of control in real time. And the Hunter Biden laptop story, way bigger than Hunter Biden himself, way bigger than the presidential family corruption itself, was how the entire economy came together to stop it. Remember, it was the Hunter Biden laptop story, even more than the reaction to January 6th, that really rang the death bell for a period of time. It seems like not forever, hopefully not forever, on the American dream. And I don't say that lightly. The idea that if you don't like something, you can build it yourself. If you don't like the way that Facebook moderates content, and Twitter moderates content, and Google moderates content, then you can build it yourself. Well, the Hunter Biden laptop story proved that to be completely false. Not only were they willing to suppress this in time for an election, but then in the months afterwards, Amazon Web Services was willing to rip out the actual serving, the internet servers beneath American companies that had done nothing wrong because they were going along with this disinformation. This whole thing exposed just how corrupt the federal government was, the intelligence services were, the people who protect them were, and the corporate interests that guarded them, that have now come around and are kissing the ring and being friendly and being polite. But you never forget what they did to the people, what they did to the elected representatives for this government, what they did to elect Joe Biden. And just don't use that for vindication always, for going around just for retribution, but use it for building a system that is better and making sure that never happens again.
Gosh, Chris, I hope you're right about the justice, because, look, I have every reason to think that Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, these are people who are actively going after it. They know where the bodies are buried or ever. They were aware of a lot of this stuff as it happened, even from the outside. So I hope that happens, because what always happens is you sit in that seat and all of a sudden you think, well, I have to worry about the institution, right? This is what a good person tells themselves. I'm concerned about the reputation of this institution. And in the past, that has been used as an excuse not to fully root it out. But in this case, you have no choice because we don't trust the FBI at all. And this is why. Could you go into a little bit more about the particulars of what's coming out? I mean, there's a lot here, but I think we've kind of glossed over that. Talk a little bit more about what this means that the FBI is gagging its own employees.
So when this story first came out, it was the first time that Facebook, which previously had hid behind this independent network of fact checkers, they called it, run very closely by Poynter Institute, which is left wing, and really responsive to the feelings of a lot of other left-wing institutions and the credentialing institutions, had decided we're allowed to be fact checkers. Facebook had always hidden behind them and decided that they weren't going to make any kind of a marketing decision or any kind of a content decision on the validity of what was coming out. When the Hunter Biden laptop story came out, they changed it. This was too big for them. They decided that regardless of fact checks, they were going to ban the sharing of this content and what was at that point, at that time, one of the biggest sources of news for Americans, including American voters, that was around. People, much less so than reading newspapers, as we know now, or watching cable news, or tuning in even here, were getting their news through Facebook. So when Facebook turns it off, it changes everything. And you saw Good Morning America, you saw all the morning shows in general completely ignore the story. I think some of them gave maybe 45 seconds to a minute and a half, the entire election cycle, to the story. Facebook said the fact checks will come. Now we've learned that FBI analysts immediately reached out and said, we've actually confirmed that this is authentic. This is not disinformation. This is not a deep fake. We don't know exactly where it has come from or how it's been exposed at this point, but we can confirm its legitimacy as Hunter Biden's laptop. And you might remember that fact check that Facebook promised was going to come and justify its actions never came. There was nothing, not even from the hacks over at USA Today or Poynter Institute or the Google School of Journalism, whatever they set up, was ever able to come up with a fact check that showed that the Hunter Biden laptop was disinformation. And now we know that the FBI knew that from the very beginning, and that senior members of the FBI clamped down, put a gag order on the analysts who'd been in touch with the tech companies, because the FBI was in close hand-in-glove touch with the tech companies to suppress disinformation, as they called it, which is really a way of waging war, information war on the American people. They put that gag order on. You had top people, top alumni from the American intelligence services signing on to public letters saying that this is fraudulent, this is dangerous. You had the campaign having to answer for this. And this kind of corruption is the sort of thing that actually would have changed votes. This is the kind of corruption that would have exposed what Donald Trump's saying was true. And it's not just the corruption of the Biden family, who was making money off of foreign adversaries, who was making money using the office of the vice presidency, who were acting extremely loose with their legal judgments. Because remember, at that point, Joe Biden hadn't been, when this was going on, when this crime was going on, Joe Biden at that point had not been selected to be the presidential nominee. He was advanced in age. Hillary Clinton was supposed to be president for 8 years. The Bidens never expected to see public scrutiny at this level again. So they decided they were going to go all in on making money, and they didn't care how they were going to do it. He was going to put his son on the airplane. It didn't matter which Chinese businessman, which Ukrainian businessman they were going to meet with. It wasn't a concern to him that the Chinese had a key to his office where he was supposedly working out of, Joe Biden himself, because he was never going to be in the public eye again. Well, all that changed, and all that came out, and the tech companies, in conjunction with the media, and in connection with the FBI and the intelligence services, did everything they could to suppress that, including, we've now learned, shutting up what they knew from the very beginning, which is that this material was authentic.
Well, Bedford, great stuff as always. And Chris, it's good to see you back in a suit and tie. Business Bedford is back. Sweater Bedford was a one-day thing.
Yeah, it's a terrible aberration, but yeah, I even shaved. It was wonderful. It feels good. I'm back to normal. When I went to the studios this morning, I was recognized.
There you go. They know business Bedford. He has a reputation there in Washington, D.C. that we're happy that you uphold that because somebody has to make D.C. look good. The swamp. Thanks so much, Bedford.
See you tomorrow.
Well, could the Republican answer to Jasmine Crockett be Senator Jim Banks? We'll have a laugh at his viral moment coming up. Well, not all Republicans were disappointing us in D.C. this week. Senator Jim Banks recently called a former worker at HHS a clown to his face. Take a look.
These are USAID workers.
Hi, I was a worker at HHS. I was fired illegally on February 14th. There are many people who are not getting social service programs, especially people with disabilities. Are you going to do anything to stop what's happening?
You probably deserved it.
I deserved it?
You probably deserved it.
I deserved it.
Dude, that's
wow.
rude and sad.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Why did I deserve it?
Because you seem like a clown.
Okay, sir, you shouldn't have said that on.
You shouldn't have said that on camera. Actually, he should, because we are all having so much fun with it. And I love that they're like, oh, I was fired illegally from HHS. No, sir.
I mean, this is one of those serendipitous moments where the way this was shot, right? I mean, you couldn't script this any better if you're sitting there to try to make these people look like clowns. They shot that with the elevator closing. It's become a meme, and it really is just brilliant cinematography. Basically, it was a perfect sequence, right? So it was set up so well. And it gets Banks at his best.
I absolutely love that he put that as his new profile picture on X, and also on X, because this was such a fun moment. I had to pull everybody out there to see what you would want to see Senator Banks. Who do you want to see him roast next, right? It's Senate rivals, leftist legacy media, leftist influencers, or more government bureaucrats. So here are the results. More government bureaucrats coming in at 35%. This is actually a pretty decently weighted poll here. Senate rivals, followed by leftist legacy media and leftist influencers coming in fourth position. MP, your thoughts on what our viewers decided here, that they wanted to see more government bureaucrats roasted the most.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's pretty even. There's a lot of people who need to be roasted these days, and we want to see them roasted. But government bureaucrats right now, this is the Doge order of the day, and straight into our veins. We want to hear more of the complaints and the tears. And drink them, because no one feels bad. This has been a long time coming. It's very needed, and it's our money being wasted. And there you just saw a U.S. senator actually lay it out. I mean, I love Jim Banks. I've spent a little bit of time with Jim Banks. I think he's a great guy. I'm just so glad he's in the Senate. I liked him when he was in Congress. And it's so great, because he's usually pretty straightforward, Indiana guy who's not saying all kinds of crazy things. Like, Senator Banks is pretty serious. He's not serious guy. He's not like an influencer type, right? He's not one of these people who like wants to be an influencer. But that right there was cold brilliance.
Well, I think that's why it works, right? Because then we do see more leftist tears, and he might actually get more because he didn't back down. Senator Banks actually refused to apologize in his latest video. Watch this.
The Democrats and the left-wing media have lost their minds because I told a left-wing activist in the halls of the Senate office buildings yesterday what I really thought. A clown is a clown who's chasing senators through the halls with a cell phone, complaining about losing a left-wing woke job in the federal government that should have never been a job to begin with. I won't back down. I won't apologize for it. I support President Trump and the Doge effort 100% to cut wasteful spending and woke jobs out of the federal government, and we're just getting started.
Keep going, Jim Banks. Keep going. We all want to see everything with Doge and Trump and everything get done. This is the mandate. That's what we want to see. So not only just from Senator Banks there, but also just other leaders, other people stepping up. We have seen this. It's kind of the Donald Trump effect because he's unafraid to say anything. He is unapologetic. And now other Republicans are following suit. Yeah,
notice that Senator Banks is new, right? He's one of the new senators. He's one of the people who, when he was in Congress, authored the working class memo, the Republican Research Committee, to say we have to become the working class party. So this is a guy who's pretty serious about what he's doing. But what you see in the media in terms of leadership in public, in terms of the way you present yourself in the media and attack the other side, is its authenticity, right? So, but what do I mean by that? Everyone uses that word, be authentic to yourself. What it means is you want to see someone in a moment that isn't crafted and scripted, right? You want to see someone in the moment that isn't just you reading something that your speechwriter wrote to an audience. An actor can do that. That's literally what they do. And in the old days of TV, right, it'd be like, I'm reading this, but I've memorized it, and now you think I've internalized it, but I can pay someone who has 3 brain cells but is really good at acting to do that. And they will seem like they are a president on TV, right? That was the televisual era. What digital has done is allow us to see these moments. And when you watch that, even though how well shot it is by the libtard is amazing, to me it almost looks like it's scripted. It's because it's not. And you see Banks in that moment, just call him a clown. You're like, I like this friggin' guy. And that's the essence of Donald Trump's media strategy, right? I mean, when you just see him walking around, you want to be with this guy. You love him. You love him when you see him just doing his thing.
It feels like a moment from like The Office or Parks and Rec or something to me. Like you're saying, it is so well scripted. That is what the liberals do well. They do. They do television pretty well. I'll give that to them. But just looking through at the different leadership that we have coming up, right? We talk about J.D. Vance a lot on this show, and I've just loved the way that Trump has unleashed him. And allowed him to take center stage even when Donald Trump is in the room and doing things.
Yes. And so there you also have someone who is very articulate off the cuff. And look, let's be real. I'll get to the real magic of this. There's an Italian word, fancy word, sprezzatura. And that means an effortless grace. It means you are able to effortlessly be who you are, but it is practice, right? So remember, Donald Trump is so good when you just see him off camera in the reality TV space because he was a reality TV star for 10 years. J.D. Vance is exceptionally good at communication so that in any circumstance, right, they have this sort of effortless way of speaking, and you see that they're comfortable in their own skin, and ultimately it is something that you have to possess internally. So that's what we're talking about, and that's the skill in the digital age, and that's what you see with Banks there, who's not trying to be Mr. Influencer, doesn't try to hog the camera, but you just look at him like, you're a friggin' clown, I mean, this is it. This is the way forward.
What's the Italian word again?
Sprezzatura.
Sprezzatura. When I was in Italy, I had to figure out what the word prego meant because they use it for everything. Oh, no, after you. Thank you. Your turn. Please go ahead. They use it in absolutely everything. But my favorite Italian word is gelato. We need more of that around. It's getting warmer outside here in Texas. We can do that. And we can do that with some good new leadership around. They would enjoy the old Italian ice cream. But it is Liberation Day, so I should probably go with something American made today.
I think that eating gelato with effortless grace is a good idea. Just making it seem as if it's unpracticed because you're so comfy with it. I think that is really the key for media, though, because you can't fake this. These people have to be comfortable in their own skin.
How are you going to celebrate the rest of your Liberation Day?
I'm going to do more work for the American people to make Blaze great and better every day. And so I have plenty of work to do today. That's really all I'm going to do today. I'm going to try to go outside, though, just for a little bit.
It's going to rain in Dallas for the next few days. So you do have to get your steps in outside while you can and enjoy the weather while we're still here. But I just look at the rest of the week and what the Trump administration is doing. We need the people out there in Washington, D.C., like Steve Deace is saying. They have to join the party, you guys. You can't just go through and celebrate Liberation Day. You have to actually go out there and do the work for Donald Trump and the mandate.
Well, I mean, Liberation Day is a good example because a lot of these Republicans don't understand the tariffs. They were against them in the past. They can't reason in the context in which we are now, so they don't get it. And so they don't really believe it. But we do. And Liberation Day is real, and everyone will recognize it in the future.
We'll see if it'll go down in history. Either way, thanks for joining us, and we'll be back with more tomorrow night.